Hello all, welcome back to the Handspin Review Spot YouTube channel. You can click on the link in the description below to go to our Facebook page, but before you do that, if you like what we're doing here, please give us a like and a subscription on this channel because that really helps us out with what we're doing. So what we're looking at today? Well, it's another Rotablade product from Paul Watson here in the UK. This is the Mark II version of the original Rotablade spinner and multi-tool device type thing. Right, before we go any further and we get into what's different here and what we're going to discuss today, let's do some size comparisons. So there we have the Rotablade, as I say. We'll put a compass in there from Zerofood. As you can see, that brings us to one of the first points we'll be discussing here, which is the size. There it is with a stubby, another Paul Watson product, and with that in mind, we'll also put it next to a tri-stubby as well. As you can see, things got quite a lot smaller. We'll put a United Machining bow tie in there, so that's a few. And then, just for the sake of reference, there we have a big old Chinese plastic bearing wrap. So there we are. Right, we'll get all of that out of the way and talk about the interesting thing, which is this very unique design. Paul was one of the first people to put anything on the market in the spinner world outside of the torque bar, and it was this very unique design. And the idea behind it was to produce a spinner, obviously a hand spinner, but also to produce something that had some other functionality. And this is what he came up with, or rather the first version of this. Now, we will be doing a full comparison video between this one and the original version, but we won't do that here fully, mainly because the overall length and that sort of thing is the same, but also because not everyone watching this will have any interest in what the difference is, because they probably won't have the old one. So we won't bore everyone with that here as well. So, as you can see, it's long. Now, what are these other functionalities that it has? Well, it's a bottle opener. You can use that here. It's an iPhone stand, or other smartphone. It will go in there, and then because of the length of this, it won't lift. So that works quite well. And also, it's a cigar stand as well in this groove. And you'll probably know that the stubby was also designed to have this sort of cigar stand groove in it as well, so that's a carryover. Now obviously he released these, they did quite well, many people still have them in their collections and love them, and he then followed it up with something that was a much more, sort of defined hand spinner design, which is obviously now the all but classic stubby. So, let's talk about how this one feels to use it as a hand spinner. I can confirm that it does do all of the other things that it says it will do. I tried that. I used to have a very nice copper one of these. I kind of wish it was still in my collection, but it was with a very good friend. Hello, Alex. And yeah, so here we are. So at first glance, you might think this is going to be quite uncomfortable, and you're not completely wrong. There are certain elements of it which don't make it the most ergonomic hand spinner in the world, but then I don't necessarily think that you buy an original Rotablade for that reason. This one is the titanium version. It comes in at, what did it come in at? It came in at something. I can't remember. Oh yes, I do remember. It was 51 grams, and can't believe that drifted out of my mind and came back so quickly. This is titanium, as I say. This is 51 grams. It's a machined finish. You can get these sandblasted as well, and this is the Tritium vial version. It's got purple on one side and green on the other, and yeah, this is basically the current flagship, although there will be some amazing laser engraved ones and anodized ones and stuff coming, which will be absolutely beautiful. So what's it like to actually use? Well, for someone with small hands like me, it's relatively challenging, but it's not as bad as you might think, and that is actually quite surprising to me, because I wasn't expecting to find this as straightforward as I can. As you see, it spins quite well. These sections here are slightly sharp in the machined version, so if they catch you, you will notice. They won't cut you or anything like that, but they are a little sharp, so that's a downside. But one of the main things that's been done with this Mark II version is this very small chamfer that now runs round the whole body. This wasn't there in the old one, and indeed, if you go and watch the comparison video that will either be up already or be up very soon, you will see that that wasn't there, and it was a particular hotspot on the old one that's now been removed. It's also changed slightly in terms of these angles as well, but the main thing that it's enabled you to do, which you couldn't really on the old titanium version at least, is spin it from the body itself. So you haven't got to reach out and grab one of these long arms and spin it. You can just spin it from the interior of the body, and depending on which way around you have it, you can get more leverage or less leverage on that. As you can see, considering this is such a long spinner and such a complex shape, it's incredibly stable on a single finger, so the tolerances here must be really remarkable, particularly with those tritium inserts and the adhesive around them. You know, props to Paul for that, because it's so incredibly smooth and stable on a single finger spin. It has a lot of axle wobble and judder as you move it, so loads of tactile feedback if that's what you like, and equally if you don't like that, this will not be a spinner for you, that's for sure. It's obviously it's a bar spinner, but there's lots of outer weight involved here, and so that really accentuates that typical bar spinner axle lash feeling. But overall, it's actually really quite addictive to spin. When you spin it slowly, it has that pendulum quality that the old one did, and certainly the heavy copper one that I had really had that going for it. Also creates some fantastic patterns in his machine finish, and even though it's a little bit sharper in places with this finish, I think I'd be inclined to actually go for this more reflective finish on it, partly because of how nice it looks while it's spinning. It really is quite lovely. As I say, it's kind of, what's interesting about this obviously is it's a non-symmetrical design, it's a reverse symmetrical design, and that means that there's a few different ways you can spin it, but it does feel different depending on if you flip it in your hand or not. If you have it this way around, you can flip it from there, which is actually quite nice, which I'd never found comfortable in the old one. If you try and flip it in the actual cutout here with this unusual kind of curved trunk sort of design, it kind of gets caught a little bit and it's not that comfortable. If you want to flip it further down the body there, you simply flip the body over and you can use the cigar stand portion to give it a flick away from the finger. So it does work very, very well. And if you have larger hands than mine, which won't be difficult because my hands are fairly small, it will not be a problem at all, I don't think, because as you can see, when I spin this, it's quite close on the inside there, and if I torque it one way or the other, you can see it catches. If you had larger hands or longer fingers, you would have more space in here where you can see the daylight through there, and I don't think you'd have as many problems. For me, it's always been a slightly large design, and that really hasn't changed. It is ever so slightly, if I remember correctly, more slender, and that definitely does help. So overall, I'm really quite surprised. One thing that has also changed with this is that the old one did not have the standard 188 stubby bearing that we've all grown used to. This one does. So you can put any R188 button on this, and indeed I've tried it with thick stack zero feud buttons, and those have been really, really comfortable because they give you less of a pinch grip, a bit more space. And I have heard from Paul that there are some plans to make some slightly different buttons for this rather than these essentially standard stubby buttons, so really keep an eye out there, because I think that could make this even more comfortable still. So there you go. There are ups and downs depending on your hand size, and there are a few hot spots on this machine version, but overall I think this is a really, really big leap forward from the original version that he released in terms of comfort and usability, and it's still one of the most unique designs on the market, even after all this time. So props to Paul for actually producing quite a unique, well, very unique and a lasting design in that sense. So there you go. Keep an eye out for the comparison video if you want even more detail on what's changed and what I think has improved. But overall, we'll leave that there. That is the Mark II original Rotablade. And yeah, if you've got big hands or you like unique stuff or you want a collector's piece, I'm happy to recommend it. It's good. If you've got small hands, be more cautious. And if you like spinners that can move through their axis without axle judder, leave it where it is. But overall, if you know all those things and you're happy, yeah, I'm quite impressed with this. Thank you very much, guys. Take care and catch you again soon. Bye-bye.